In just 34 seconds, one of Hollywood's most respected actors completely loses his cool and storms off a major late-night talk show. What started as a simple conversation about faith and values turns into an absolute war of words, with Bill Maher pushing buttons he should have left alone, and Denzel Washington delivering a takedown so brutal that cameras kept rolling even after he walked off set. This is the story of how one host's smugness met its match. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the moments they don't want you to see, and the truth behind the carefully crafted images. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Last night on Real Time with Bill Maher, something happened that nobody saw coming. Denzel Washington, the two-time Academy Award winner known for staying above the Hollywood drama, was scheduled to appear on the show. What they got instead was a masterclass in how to completely misread your guest and pay the price for it. The trouble started almost immediately. Denzel walked out with that signature smile on his face. Bill stood up from behind his desk, shook Denzel's hand, and they both settled into their chairs. "Denzel Washington, everybody," Bill said, grinning wide. "Man, it's good to have you here. I've been trying to get you on this show for years." "Well, I'm here now," Denzel replied, his voice measured. "You are," Bill continued, "and I want to talk about your new film, but first, I gotta ask you something. You're one of the few people in Hollywood who openly talks about faith, about God, about going to church. In this town, that's like admitting you believe in Bigfoot." Denzel smiled, but it was a tight smile. "I don't think it's quite like Bigfoot, Bill. Faith is personal. It's important to me. It shapes who I am." Right, Bill said, waving his hand dismissively. "But you're an intelligent guy. You've played some of the smartest characters in cinema. Malcolm X, for God's sake. How do you reconcile being an educated, thoughtful person with believing in, the magic man in the sky?" Denzel's jaw tightened. "Magic man in the sky? Is that how you see it?" "Well, come on," Bill said. "You're talking about a book written thousands of years ago by people who thought the earth was flat. They didn't know where the sun went at night. And we're supposed to base our morality on that? You're simplifying something incredibly complex," Denzel said, his voice still calm but with an edge. "The Bible has guided billions of people. It's given people hope, strength, a moral compass. You might not agree with it, but to reduce it to what you just said is disrespectful." Bill laughed. "Disrespectful? Denzel, respectfully, I think what's disrespectful is telling people they're going to burn in hell for eternity if they don't believe what you believe. That's pretty disrespectful, don't you think?" "I've never told anyone they're going to hell," Denzel shot back. "That's not my place. What I do is share what works for me, what gives my life meaning. You don't have to believe it, but you don't get to mock it either." "I'm not mocking you," Bill said, though his smirk suggested otherwise. "I'm questioning the belief system. There's a difference. This is what we do on this show. We ask hard questions." "Hard questions," Denzel repeated. "Okay, so let me ask you a hard question, Bill. What do you believe in? What guides you? What makes you get up in the morning and think your life has purpose?" Bill seemed caught off guard for a second. "I believe in reason, in science, in evidence. I believe in making this world better because this is the only one we've got. I don't need the promise of heaven to be a good person." "That's beautiful," Denzel said. "But you just spent the last 5 minutes tearing down what I believe in. So your reason and evidence tells you that's okay? That's being a good person?" Bill's smile flickered. "I'm having a conversation. This is a talk show. We talk. If your faith is so strong, why does it bother you when someone questions it?" "It doesn't bother me when someone questions it," Denzel replied. "It bothers me when someone disrespects it. When you call God a magic man in the sky, that's not a question. That's mockery dressed up as intellectual curiosity. And you know it." Bill leaned forward. "Okay, let me put it this way. You're a role model to millions of people. Young black kids look up to you. Don't you think you have a responsibility to promote critical thinking instead of blind faith?" The room got very quiet. Denzel stared at Bill for a long moment. "Blind faith?" Denzel said slowly. "You think my faith is blind?" I think any faith that doesn't question itself is blind, Bill said. And religion has been used to justify some of the worst things in human history: slavery, genocide, oppression of women and gay people. You can't just ignore that. And I don't ignore it, Denzel said, his voice getting harder. But you know what else has been used to justify terrible things? Science, reason, governments that claim to be guided by logic and evidence. Stalin was an atheist. Mao was an atheist. They killed millions. So does that mean your belief system is responsible for that? Bill started to respond. But Denzel held up his hand. No, let me finish, Denzel said. You don't get to cherry-pick the worst examples of religion and act like that represents everyone who believes. That's lazy thinking, Bill. And you're not a lazy thinker. So why are you doing it? I'm not cherry-picking, Bill protested. I'm pointing out facts. Facts, Denzel said. You want facts? Here's a fact. Faith communities feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, provide medical care in places where nobody else will go. Churches, mosques, synagogues, they do the work that your reason and evidence doesn't seem to inspire. So before you sit here and mock what I believe, maybe show a little gratitude for the good it does. Bill's face flushed red. I never said religion doesn't do good things, but you can do good things without believing in fairy tales. That's when things really exploded. Denzel stood up from his chair. Fairy tales? Denzel said, his voice loud now, commanding the room. You just called my faith a fairy tale? So you invited me on your show to insult me, Denzel said. That's what this is. You didn't want a conversation. You wanted to feel superior. You wanted to mock what I believe in front of your audience. That's not fair, Bill said. I'm trying to have an honest discussion about religion in America. You're the one getting defensive. Defensive? Denzel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Man, you don't know the meaning of honest. An honest discussion means you actually listen to the other person. You respect their point of view even if you disagree. But you came into this with your mind made up. You think anyone who believes in God is stupid. Just admit it. I don't think you're stupid, Bill said. I think you're wrong. There's a difference. No, Bill, you think you're smarter than me, Denzel said, pointing at him. You think because you read some books and you've got this TV show that makes you enlightened. But let me tell you something. Intelligence without wisdom is just arrogance. And you're drowning in it right now. The room was dead silent. Bill's face was red. I've had a lot of guests on this show who disagreed with me, Bill said, his voice tight. And we managed to have respectful conversations. The fact that you can't handle your beliefs being challenged says more about you than it does about me. Challenged? Denzel said, his voice rising. You haven't challenged anything. You've insulted me from the moment I sat down. You've mocked my faith. You've called the Bible primitive. You've suggested I'm a bad role model for believing in God. And now you're trying to flip this and make it seem like I'm the problem? You're getting worked up over nothing, Bill said. And that was possibly the worst thing he could have said. Nothing? Denzel's voice boomed. My faith is nothing to you? The thing that got me through my darkest days, that helped me raise my children, that gives my life meaning. That's nothing? That's not what I meant, Bill started to say. No, that's exactly what you meant. Denzel cut him off. You meant that your worldview is the only valid one, that anyone who sees things differently is beneath you. And you know what the saddest part is? You actually believe you're being brave right now. You think attacking Christianity makes you edgy and controversial. But you know what? It's the easiest thing in the world. Christianity is an easy target because we're taught to turn the other cheek. We're taught to forgive. So people like you take advantage of that. You mock us because you know we won't come after you the way other groups might. Bill opened his mouth. But Denzel wasn't done. You want to be a real provocateur, Bill? Try this on for size. Talk about Islam the way you just talked about Christianity. Use the same mocking tone. Call it fairy tales to a Muslim guest. See how that goes for you. But you won't. Because you're not brave. You're just a bully who picks on people he knows won't fight back. That is completely unfair, Bill said, his voice shaking. I criticize all religions. Not the same way, Denzel said. Not with the same venom. And you know it. Look, I think we need to take a breath here, Bill said, trying to regain control. This got more heated than I intended. More heated than you intended, Denzel repeated. So you did intend for it to get heated. You just didn't expect me to push back. You thought I'd sit here and take it because I'm supposed to be the dignified one, the classy one. Well, guess what? Dignity doesn't mean being a punching bag. Nobody's making you a punching bag, Bill said. But if you come on a show where we discuss controversial topics, you have to be willing to defend your positions. I defended my position, Denzel said. You just didn't like the defense because it made you look small. And you can't handle that. You can't handle someone calling you out on your bullshit. Bill's eyes flashed with anger. My bullshit? I've built a career on speaking truth to power, on calling out hypocrisy wherever I see it. Then look in a mirror, Denzel said. Because the biggest hypocrite in this room right now is you. You preach tolerance, but you can't tolerate someone who believes differently than you. You talk about respecting people, but you've shown me nothing but disrespect since I sat down. You claim to be open-minded, but your mind was closed before I even walked through that door. This is absurd, Bill said. You're twisting everything I'm saying. No, I'm repeating what you said, Denzel replied. Magic man in the sky, fairy tales, blind faith. Those are your words, Bill, not mine. Own them. Bill took a deep breath. Okay, fine. Maybe I could have phrased things better, but my point stands. Religion has caused enormous harm throughout history. And so has pride, Denzel said quietly. So has the arrogance of thinking you have all the answers. You sit here week after week, passing judgment on everyone and everything. Politicians, celebrities, ordinary people. You act like you're above it all, like you've figured out the secrets of the universe. But you haven't. You're just a man with opinions. Same as me. Same as everyone else. The difference is, I know I don't have all the answers. I admit there are things I don't understand. I have faith because I recognize the limits of my knowledge. But you think your limited human understanding is the final word on existence. And that's not enlightenment, Bill. That's just ego. The room was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. Bill stood there, his mouth opening and closing. You know what? Denzel said, his voice suddenly tired. I thought coming on this show would be different. I thought we could have a real conversation. Two adults exchanging ideas. But you don't want that. You want a stage to perform on. You want someone to tear down so you can build yourself up. Well, congratulations. You got your moment. I hope it was worth it. Where are you going? Bill asked as Denzel started to move toward the edge of the set. I'm leaving, Denzel said simply. Because I don't have to sit here and be disrespected. I don't care how big your show is. I don't care how many Emmys you've won. You don't talk to me that way. You don't talk about my faith that way. Not without consequences. Consequences? Bill said. And there was a nervous laugh in his voice. What? You're going to cancel me? Denzel stopped and turned back. Cancel you? Man, I don't need to cancel you. You're doing a fine job of that yourself. Every time you talk down to someone, every time you mock what they hold sacred, every time you mistake cruelty for cleverness, you're showing people exactly who you are, and eventually, they're going to get tired of it. Bill's face was red again. You know what? Fine. Walk off. Prove you can't handle a little intellectual challenge. Denzel laughed. A little intellectual challenge? Bill, you couldn't challenge me intellectually if you tried, because you don't know anything about what I believe. You don't know the theology. You don't know the history. You don't know the philosophy. You've got your little talking points that you've memorized from Richard Dawkins or whoever, but you've never actually studied what you're criticizing. You've never read the great Christian thinkers. You've never grappled with the hard questions that believers have been asking for thousands of years. You just know the surface-level stuff that makes for good TV. And that's fine for your audience, but don't pretend it's some kind of intellectual achievement. I've read plenty, Bill said defensively. Have you? Denzel asked. Have you read Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, C.S. Lewis? Have you read the actual arguments for faith, or just the arguments against it? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you've only read one side, and that's not being intellectual. That's being biased. Bill started to respond, but Denzel held up his hand again. You know what? Forget it, Denzel said. This isn't worth it. You're not going to change your mind. You're too invested in being right. And I'm not going to change mine, but the difference between us is, I never tried to change yours. I never attacked what you believe. I never mocked your worldview. I never called you names or suggested you were stupid for seeing things differently. That was all you, Bill. All you." The two men stared at each other across the set. "I think you're overreacting," Bill finally said. "And I think you're underreacting," Denzel replied. "I think you don't understand the gravity of what you just did. You invited a guest onto your show, someone who's given you his time and energy, and you spent that time insulting him, not debating him, not engaging with him, insulting him. And now you're acting surprised that he's walking away. What did you expect? That I'd just sit there and smile while you tore apart the foundation of my life?" "I was trying to have a conversation about religion in America," Bill said. "No," Denzel said firmly. "You were trying to score points. You were trying to get your audience to laugh at the religious guy. You were trying to feel superior. And maybe that works with some of your guests. Maybe some people come on here and play along with your game. But I'm not playing. I don't need this. I don't need your show. I don't need your approval. I don't need anything from you." Bill's expression hardened. "Well, that's pretty clear. I guess we know where you stand." "Yeah, we do," Denzel said. "I stand with dignity. I stand with respect. I stand with the belief that people's faith, whatever it is, deserves to be treated with basic human decency. And you clearly don't stand with any of that. You stand alone, Bill, on your little island of superiority. And I genuinely hope it keeps you warm at night." "This is ridiculous," Bill muttered, turning away. "No, this is honest," Denzel said to his back. "Maybe for the first time tonight, we're being honest. You don't respect me. You don't respect what I believe. And I don't respect how you treat people who disagree with you. So let's just call it what it is." Bill spun back around. "Fine. You want honesty? I think religion is holding humanity back. I think we'd be better off without it. I think people use it as a crutch because they can't face reality. And I think smart people like you should know better." Denzel nodded slowly. "There it is. That's what you really think. Thank you for finally saying it out loud. Now everybody knows. Now there's no pretending this was just a conversation or a debate. You think I'm weak. You think I'm foolish. You think I'm afraid of reality. Don't make this personal," Bill said. "It is personal," Denzel shot back. "Faith is personal. God is personal. That's the whole point. You can't separate the belief from the believer. When you attack one, you attack the other." Bill laughed bitterly. "You know how many people would kill to be where you're sitting right now? Then maybe you should have invited one of them," Denzel said. "Because I'm done." He started walking toward the edge of the stage. And this time he didn't stop. Bill called after him. "So you're just going to leave? Walk off in the middle of the show?" Denzel turned one last time. "Yes, I am. Because that's what you do when someone disrespects you. You remove yourself from the situation. My mama taught me that when I was 5 years old. Maybe nobody taught you." "This is childish," Bill said. "No, what's childish is thinking you can say whatever you want without consequences," Denzel replied. "What's childish is your inability to admit when you've crossed a line." "I'm not being childish, Bill. I'm being a grown man who knows his worth. And I'm worth more than this." "Fine," Bill said loudly. "Go ahead and leave. Run away because you can't defend your beliefs." Denzel stopped and faced Bill one more time. His voice was calm now, almost gentle. "Bill," he said, "I don't need to defend my beliefs to you. My beliefs are between me and God. What I needed was respect, basic human respect, and you couldn't give me that. So yeah, I'm leaving. Not because I'm running away, but because I'm running toward people who value me, toward people who understand that disagreement doesn't require disrespect. You have a good night, Bill. I hope you get whatever it is you were looking for from this." And with that, Denzel Washington walked off the set of Real Time with Bill Maher. Bill stood behind his desk, his face a storm of emotions he was clearly trying to control. "Well," Bill said into his microphone, his voice strained, "I guess we'll go to commercial." But the cameras kept rolling for a few more seconds, catching Bill as he slumped into his chair, his hands covering his face. Denzel was already backstage. Someone handed him his phone. His face was calm now. The anger burned away. A production assistant approached nervously. "Mr. Washington, I'm so sorry about what happened. Denzel looked at her and smiled. Don't be sorry. Sometimes people need to hear the truth. Maybe tonight was his turn. He walked toward the exit, his head high. Behind him, the studio was in chaos. As Denzel pushed through the door to the parking lot, he took a deep breath of cool night air. He looked up at the sky, then shook his head and laughed quietly. Magic man in the sky, he muttered. Lord, give that man some wisdom. Then Denzel Washington got into his car and drove away, leaving behind a talk show host who had finally met his match, and a confrontation that would be replayed millions of times. Denzel had walked onto that stage as a guest, but he left as something more. A man who stood up for what he believed, who refused to be diminished, who showed that real strength isn't about winning an argument, it's about knowing when to walk away with your dignity intact.